Greetings to you, night crew. Time for a little bit of dessert. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. I just want to give a quick thanks to the Tier 5 channel members and patrons. Bob the Dragon, Data Magnet, Sergeant Puma, Cat Crab Lobster, and Duck Machine. Thank you very much for the support. It is much appreciated. When Deathworlders Meet, Part 4. The captain pulled up the one chair in the cell and took a seat. Across from him, their guest lounged on his padded bunk. It was meant to be uncomfortably small, but with him it seemed decadently large. His unusual coverings were folded up behind him as a pillow, and a blanket covered him from his waist to his toes. His chest and arms were exposed, showing off his substantial musculature. Less than a meter of space stood between them in this padded cell. "Nice place you got here," the human said. "I stayed in a terrestrial ship once and they'd got nothing on you guys. Compared to our spaceport, well, this ship's like a floating palace. How do you do it?" The captain certainly hadn't expected to be praised for the accommodations, but given its small stature and the confines of the craft they found him in, he should not have been surprised. "Well, we value our guests and strive to provide the best that we can offer for them," he replied, trying his best to sound sincere. "Gods and lords, this thing was stupid. But the bunks for our crew are what you might typically find on any military or patrol spacecraft." This was a lie across the board. He had no idea what the inside of a military or patrol craft looked like. Had his quarters with 2 stories and about 100 square meters. "Wow, thank you for the guest treatment then," the human said. "And I want to thank you for rescuing me out there. I thought that module would be my tube, buried alive in space." The captain could empathize. It was any space's worst nightmare. He suppressed a shudder. Really, sending this man into a life of servitude was doing him a favor. His potential buyer wouldn't put such a novelty to work at hard labor when it could be used for a conversation piece. He would probably spend his days entertaining and doing parlor tricks as a house slave. Not a bad way to live. Better than death by starvation in a metal pod. "Well, it was the least we could do here on the Bright Hope," he said. The ship's name was the Halcyon Harvester. "We were a few light years out, but when we picked up your warp field collapsing and saw that you couldn't get going again, well, we knew that we had to help. You can actually detect warp bubbles on other vessels, real time, from light years away," the human asked, sitting up a little straighter in his bunk. Had he been taller, he would have hit his head. The captain was taken aback. He definitely hadn't expected the human to have cared of something like that. He hadn't even expected him to be capable of caring about something like that. "Well, yeah," Antic-Tung replied, rubbing his chin. "How do you do it?" the smaller man asked. "Does the warp field project itself ahead of the bubble, or maybe the compressed space causes ripples ahead of it, like a stone in water?" This creature was not stupid, not by a long shot. That sort of technology is classified," Captain Antic-Tung replied. In truth, he had no idea how the hell they did it. That was probably a question for the guys who built the sensor suite that they bought. "Oh right, like the Prime Directive," Stevens said. Perhaps seeing the confusion on the captain's face, he hastened to clarify. "Humans have speculated that there might be a rule that prevents more advanced sentients from providing technology to less advanced sentients for fear of disrupting the natural course of their development." No, that was about the stupidest thing that he'd ever heard. "It's more of a security issue. We can't give away our technology when we don't know how it might be used." That was a lie, of course, but much more believable than the idea that he, or anyone else who wasn't an anthropologist, gave a flying shit about the development of some primitives. Nothing aboard his ship could be procured by anyone in the open market in a spacecraft or law enforcement supply store. He just didn't want to admit to this human that he had no idea how the sensors worked, and this excuse played well in keeping their guest behind a locked door. "May I ask some questions about you?" Antic-Tung asked, "to get a better idea of your status?" Of course, came the quick reply. "Good." The captain made a show of pulling out a datapad and a stylus. "So, what is your profession?" "I am an explorer," the human said with a nod, an almost universal indicator of yes. "You're not a soldier?" the captain asked. "You were wearing armor when we found you, and beneath that you wore coverings with insignia." "Oh no," he replied. "I used to be an airman." The captain's translator supplied warrior whose domain is aerospace for the unusual human-speak word. That his people had a single simple word for that was disconcerting. Still, there were plenty of harmless races with deep martial traditions. "But I'm a civilian." Civilian became one who was not serving in the military, as if that wasn't already an assumption in the language. Again, disconcerting, but not terribly unusual. "What are you exploring?" the captain asked, idly typing nonsense into his datapad. "Oh, the galaxy," said Stephen. "I'm conducting humanity's first manned extrasolar spaceflight and our first manned effective FTL test. It didn't go as planned." "We kind of figured that out as we recovered you from the void," said the captain. "And those symbols on your skin covering, they remind me of some military identifications and rank that I've seen in a few races using." He pulled his coverings from behind him, a bright orange one piece with numerous pockets, zippers, fasteners, and insignia. "Not at all. None of these are even remotely related to the military," he said, pointing at each one in turn as he explained. "This one is a government-funded explorer organization I work for called NASA. This one is a government that funds it, the United States of America. These are for the mission and the spacecraft that brought me here and malfunctioned. Project Pathfinder and Victoria. This last patch with the wings means that I'm a pilot, and it has my first name, Stephen, and my family name, McLaren, my tribe name, Lieutenant Colonel, and my clan name, Usaf." "Okay," the captain replied. "I thought as much. So this thing really wasn't an engineered super soldier, or any kind of soldier at all, for that matter. That still left other questions. And my suit wasn't armor," Stephen continued, folding his orange skin covering. "It's just for survival in case of a hull breach." "Were you genetically engineered?" asked the captain. "No, not at all. 100% natural." "Why?" "It is just one of those questions we have to ask. There have been concerns with unnatural biological contaminations," he said. Again, not true at all. But it sounded better than, "I need to know if I should put you in a stronger cage." The captain licked his teeth and snout. "Next question. Are you carnivorous?" For a moment the man said nothing as he drew his eyebrows together, like an expression for confusion, perhaps. "You mean like, eating meat?" The single word meat had been translated as flesh of prey animal. Now that was a red flag. End of chapter. And that, my friends, concludes this video. I hope that you enjoyed, and if